Welcome, everyone, to a deep dive into, well, just a singular career, really. A 6-decade journey that fundamentally redefined what it meant to be a leading lady in American cinema. We are exploring the life and work of Diane Keaton, an artist whose style defined a generation, whose comedic timing was just unparalleled, and whose dramatic depth, often underestimated, I think.
Definitely. She was unique, incredibly versatile.
Yeah, and possessed this incredible ability to transition almost seamlessly, from high wire, screwball comedy to the deepest, most complex drama. Our sources, they argue she was an architect of modern acting, an icon, and maybe most accurately, the true anti-goddess of New Hollywood.
That phrase, anti-goddess, it's so evocative, isn't it? And that's really what we're here to unpack today. Our mission for this deep dive is to distill exactly how Keaton transitioned from maybe a stage novelty to a defining figure of New Hollywood in the 70s.
Right.
And then how she maintained this level of creative output that spanned, well, all the way through 2024. She wasn't just a celebrated actress either. That's key.
No, not at all.
We are looking at a true polymath. A director, an author, a prolific photographer, and something maybe less known, a passionate architectural preservationist. Her creativity just extended far beyond the camera lens.
We have a massive amount of material covering her entire lifespan, starting from her stage debut in, 1968, all the way through her final roles.
The huge arc.
And the accolades, they really speak for themselves, which we should acknowledge right up front. An Academy Award, a BAFTA, 2 Golden Globes, and the AFI Life Achievement Award, which is, that's perhaps the highest honor in American film.
It really is.
This immense body of work, as one critic summarized it, made her talent difficult to explicate and impossible to duplicate. I love that quote.
It sums it up perfectly. It truly is a career built on self-invention, and fittingly, the sources show that process began right at the starting line. Almost literally.
Exactly. Let's start with an initial nugget, something that perfectly captures her tendency towards self-invention. She was born Diane Keaton Hall in Los Angeles, right? But when she joined the Actors Equity Association, she adopted her mother's maiden name, Keaton, as her professional surname.
And why?
Because, remarkably, there was already an actress registered under the name Diane Hall.
Wow.
It was a practical decision, sure, but it marked the official birth of the icon we know.
It's fascinating. A subtle administrative hurdle that kind of accidentally resulted in the creation of this legendary persona. That initial shift allowed her to define herself right from the get-go, rather than be defined by, a conflict with a pre-existing identity.
Okay, so let's lay the foundations. Diane Keaton Hall, born in Los Angeles, 1946, eldest of 4 kids. Her family background is quite telling, I think, about the blend of discipline and creativity she inherited.
Tell us about her parents.
Well, her mom, Dorothy Dean, she was a homemaker, but also an amateur photographer, which becomes important later. And her dad, John Newton Ignatius Hall, they called him Jack. He was a real estate broker and also a civil engineer. He was noted as being half Irish through his mother's side.
Okay, but what's really crucial here, according to the sources, is where that initial spark for performing came from. It wasn't like a classic Hollywood connection.
No, it was her mother, Dorothy. She won the Mrs. Los Angeles pageant.
Right, and Keaton later spoke about this, saying the sheer theatricality, the performance aspect of that whole event, that was what first inspired her impulse to become an actress.
Wow.
Her career sort of had its genesis in watching her mother engage in this very specific, almost domestic kind of performance.
That immediately links her work to the complexities of American womanhood, doesn't it? Long before she ever stepped onto a major set.
Absolutely. And she chose a powerful role model, too.
Katharine Hepburn.
Exactly. Whom she specifically admired for playing strong, fiercely independent women, a template Keaton would eventually, modernize in her own way.
She honed her craft locally first, starring as Blanche Dubois in a high school production of A Streetcar Named Desire, quite a role for high school.
That's ambitious.
Yeah. She graduated in '63, then brief stints at Santa Ana College and Orange Coast College before dropping out to make the inevitable move to Manhattan.
And Manhattan was where she stopped just dabbling and started studying seriously. She enrolled at the neighborhood playhouse and studied the Meisner technique.
Okay, explain that a bit. Why is the Meisner technique important here?
Well, this isn't just a biographical detail. It's pretty central to understanding her acting style. The Meisner technique emphasizes what actors call the reality of doing and focusing on genuine moment-to-moment reactions with your scene partner.
Ah, okay. So how did that training then inform her later film work?
It really provided the foundation for her incredible chemistry with other actors. She herself viewed acting as being only as good as the person you're acting with.
Mm.
It's an approach focused on ensemble, on authenticity, which is precisely why her collaborations with, say, Woody Allen or Al Pacino or Jack Nicholson feel so grounded and reactive.
Yeah.
She wasn't playing to the camera. She was playing with the person opposite her.
You can really see that. And we see the independence, that self-possession emerge almost immediately in her professional career, right? When she landed a role as an understudy in the original 1968 Broadway production of Hair.
Groundbreaking show. Very controversial for its time, especially for that famous nude scene at the end of Act 1.
And this is where she gained her first bit of notoriety, wasn't it?
Yeah, for refusing to participate in the optional nudity. Those who chose to disrobe, they received a $50 bonus, which is, considerable money for an understudy back in '68.
Wow, $50.
She spent 9 months in the production, but consistently refused the bonus and the exposure. This choice established an early pattern, really. She was comfortable pushing boundaries in performance, but only on her own terms, maintaining a very specific boundary around her personal life and image.
After 9 months in Hair, then the crucial audition happened, the one that kind of led to her professional destiny, meeting Woody Allen.
Right. She auditioned for his 1969 play. Play it again, Sam.
And the sources say she almost lost the part.
Yeah, because she was too tall. She's 5 feet 8 inches, which is about 5 centimeters taller than Allen. But she landed the role as the romantic interest anyway.
And her performance was instantly lauded, earned her a Tony Award nomination for Best Featured Actress in a Play.
That initial stage success really solidified the foundation for what would become one of the most significant director-muse partnerships in modern cinema.
She then transitioned pretty quickly to screen work, making her film debut in a small role in Lovers and Other Strangers in 1970.
Gotta start somewhere.
Exactly. Paid the bills like any aspiring New York actor, right? Even appeared in a deodorant commercial for Hour After Hour.
Caustic.
And snagging guest roles on popular TV shows like Love, American Style, Night Gallery, Mannix. She was building momentum right as the whole structure of Hollywood was collapsing and reforming into that 1970s new Hollywood.
The timing of her career ascension, it just couldn't have been more perfect, really. As she entered the film world, directors were actively looking for actors who felt real, authentic. They were moving away from that manufactured glamour of the old studio system.
And she delivered exactly that authenticity. Her breakthrough came almost immediately with Francis Ford Coppola.
Which was, of course.
Kay Adams and The Godfather, 1972, and The Godfather Part 2, 1974. I mean, what an entry point into cinema history. Monumental.
Absolutely. And Coppola cast her specifically because he wanted that kooky actress reputation she had. He wanted that real-life eccentricity to sort of counter the hyper-stylized, dangerous world of the Corleone family. Initially, she found the experience kind of mirrored her character's situation, being the woman in a world of men, surrounded by these legendary male actors and a highly intense director.
That environment, that hypermasculinity and heavy dramatic pressure must have been incredibly intense for a relatively new screen actress.
It was. And the sources reflect her initial skepticism about the role, actually. Kay, in the first film, she's often kind of relegated to the background, isn't she? Representing the civilian world Michael Corleone is leaving behind.
Yeah, she's the outsider looking in.
Exactly. However, she found the evolution of Kay in Part 2 much more fulfilling. Apparently, she initially resisted reprising the role.
Really?
Yeah, but then found the character much more substantial as Kay became visibly disillusioned, outspoken about the criminal empire and its collateral damage. Her performance in the second film, especially those scenes confronting Michael, they showcase this quiet fury. It's powerful.
Yet, despite the massive exposure these films provided, the critical assessment was kind of mixed at first, wasn't it, for her performance?
Very much so. Time magazine, for example, suggested she was invisible in The Godfather and pallid in The Godfather Part 2.
Ouch.
Yeah. I think the critics expected an actress in that world of men to either be a femme fatale or, a pure victim. Keaton was neither. She was the conscience, the outsider perspective.
That makes sense.
Which is why the counterpoint from Empire magazine is so sharp, calling her the quiet linchpin. She brought the necessary humanity into this world defined by brutality, providing the moral scale against which Michael Corleone's actions were judged.
And while The Godfather cemented her gravitas, her collaborations with Woody Allen were simultaneously establishing her as the definitive comedic voice of the decade. She was his muse throughout his early formative directorial years.
Yeah, acting in the film version of Play It, again, Sam, then Sleeper, Love and Death, Manhattan, The list goes on.
She provided the perfect, slightly neurotic foil for Alan's self-obsessed characters, didn't she?
Absolutely. Their chemistry was just instantaneous, blending that physical comedy with rapid-fire, intellectual dialogue. She really mastered the art of playing intelligent anxiety.
This all built toward 1977, the year that truly defined the modern Keaton persona, Annie Hall.
The big one.
Yeah. This performance won her the Academy Award for Best Actress and just changed cinema. The character, Annie Hall, was famously based loosely on Keaton herself. Annie was her nickname, Hall was her original surname.
Alan called the character an idealized version of Keaton, capturing her mannerisms, her self-deprecating humor, her conversational tics, those little whirlwinds of semi-logic.
That performance was truly revolutionary, wasn't it? Particularly for female representation on screen. Alan famously described it as watching a nervous breakdown in slow motion.
Yeah, and film critic Molly Haskell coined that defining term, labeling her the anti-goddess,
Yeah.
the insecure bungler she is. We need to pause on this concept of the anti-goddess.
Okay.
Because traditionally, a leading woman in Hollywood was either, unattainable glamour or sort of melodramatic tragedy. Keaton played the intellectual, anxious, awkward, and yet lovable mess.
She really reflected the complexities of that second-wave feminist era, didn't she? Where women were gaining intellectual and professional independence, but were often still wrestling with crippling insecurity about relationships, career, self-worth.
Exactly. She resonated because she normalized the flawed complexity of women who were smart but messy. Premiere Magazine later ranked it among the 100 greatest performances of all time, specifically noting that the genius was playing someone awkward, self-deprecating, speaking in endearing little whirlwinds of semi-logic. She just captured the ambivalence of that new generation of American women.
And nothing cemented her status as a cultural icon quite like the fashion. The wardrobe in Annie Hall, the vintage men's clothing, the neckties, the vests, the baggy pants, the fedoras. It became instantly iconic.
Totally. And apparently she brought some of her own clothing to the production, reflecting a tomboyish style she already favored.
It was an incredible accident of style, almost. She made the choice to favor comfort and this intellectual aesthetic over the traditional 1970s screen siren glamour.
And the sociological impact was profound. Her look, often described as masculine or androgynous, it normalized men's clothing and pantsuits for women in mainstream fashion. It was like a visual rejection of Hollywood's imposed femininity.
Even decades later, that style remained her signature, didn't it? I remember reading a 2005 profile that noted she was easy to find. Look for the only woman in sight dressed in a turtleneck.
Yes. Her unique style was just central to her public identity. It became a symbol of nonconformist confidence.
But the danger of such a huge breakout role is being permanently boxed into a single type, right? So to avoid being only the ditzy muse, she made a strategic, kind of shocking pivot that very same year, 1977, taking on the dark, complex lead role in Looking for Mr. Goodbar.
This was such a brilliant move to control her career narrative. She played Teresa Dunn, a Catholic school teacher for deaf children who led this dangerous double-life frequenting singles bars.
Or talk about a switch from Annie Hall.
Exactly. She moved from that lighthearted intellectual comedy to this exploration of self-destructive female sexuality. She was drawn to the role specifically as a psychological case history.
And the critical reception confirmed her strategic genius, didn't it? Critics, who were kind of tired of restricted female roles, saw this as her declaring serious intent. Time magazine noted that she dominated the raunchy, risky, violent dramatization.
Yeah, and Andrew Sarris, a highly respected critic, he analyzed her career trajectory at that moment and proclaimed her clearly the most dynamic woman star in pictures. That simultaneous success, the comedic triumph of Annie Hall, and the intense dramatic lead in Goodbar was established right there in 1977. It secured her versatility for the next 2 decades.
The 70s weren't just about acting for her, though. The decade also saw her explore these non-acting passions that would really define her later life.
Yes, absolutely. She had apparently a lifelong ambition to be a singer.
Really?
Yeah. And while a solo album in the 70s never materialized, she did feature her singing act prominently in films like Annie Hall and later Radio Days.
I remember those scenes.
And crucially, she seriously explored photography, a hobby she learned from her mother, remember?
Right, the amateur photographer.
Exactly. Her initial fascination led to her first collection, Reservations, published in 1980, which featured these haunting, beautiful photographs of deserted hotel interiors. She described the process of seeking out these empty spaces as an adventure.
Hmm.
It's an early clue, I think, to her lasting fascination with architecture and preserved history. You see the connection starting there, 1980, 1999.
Okay, so as we move into the 1980s, Keaton made a pretty deliberate shift, didn't she? Largely pausing her work with Woody Allen to focus on establishing herself purely as a serious dramatic star.
Mm-hmm.
This included her next major undertaking, the 1981 historical epic Reds, directed by and starring Warren Beatty, with whom she was romantically involved at the time.
Yeah, and this film was just monumental in its scope and subject matter, chronicling the life of American journalist and communist John Reed. Keaton played his partner, the journalist and feminist Louise Bryant.
And the sources detail that the film was notoriously difficult to make.
Oh, incredibly so. Plagued by financial issues, creative clashes, logistical nightmares in recreating the Russian Civil War era. It sounds like chaos.
Keaton admitted the intensity of the process nearly overwhelmed her, saying she almost got broken by the difficulty of the role. Given the real-life political complexities of the character and the period, what specifically did she bring to Louise Bryant?
I think she brought accessibility. She described Bryant as the every man of that piece. She had to portray this radical, intelligent woman navigating immense political upheaval while maintaining this highly complex, tempestuous personal relationship.
And critics saw her rise to the challenge.
They did. The New York Times called her nothing less than splendid, noting her ability to ground the epic scope with genuine human emotion. And Roger Ebert, he praised her specific attributes: plucky, healthy, exasperated, loyal, and funny.
Quite a combination.
Yeah. And this resulted in her second Academy Award nomination, confirming her success outside the comedic sphere she was so known for.
This momentum continued into 1982 with another intense domestic drama, Shoot the Moon, opposite Albert Finney. This wasn't historical drama. This was the raw, uncomfortable realism of a marriage just disintegrating.
Yeah, and this is arguably where critics truly acknowledge her dramatic muscle, independent of her famous collaborators. The influential critic Pauline Kael was effusive, stating that Keaton's performance had moved on to a different plane.
Wow, high praise from Kael.
Absolutely. Kael concluded that Keaton had the strength and the instinct for the toughest dramatic roles, intelligent, sophisticated heroines. This critical assessment placed her firmly in the league of serious, character-driven dramatic actresses. She earned a Golden Globe nomination for it, too, cementing the success of her strategic pivot away from pure comedy.
But versatility always means taking risks, right? And not every risk paid off instantly. In 1984, she took her first excursion into the thriller and action genre with The Little Drummer Girl, based on the John le Carre novel.
Right, about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That film was a major critical and financial failure. She was widely deemed miscast, kind of struggling to find her footing in a genre that requires a very specific kind of cool detachment.
Which isn't really her wheelhouse.
Not really. But, we shouldn't necessarily view this as a setback, maybe more as a necessary learning experience. It proved that her strength lay in psychological complexity and character dialogue, not espionage thrills.
Good point. And she recovered quickly that same year with Mrs. Soffel.
Exactly. She received positive reviews for playing this deeply repressed prison warden's wife who finds love with a convicted murderer, back in her complex character zone.
The late 80s then saw her embrace a sophisticated return to mainstream comedy, largely thanks to her first collaboration with writer-producer Nancy Meyers.
Baby Boom in 1987. A massive commercial hit. She played J.C. Wyatt, this high-powered Manhattan career woman who suddenly, reluctantly has to care for a toddler.
It let her fuse that intellectual, highly stressed persona with genuine warmth, didn't it?
Perfectly. Kael again praised this return, calling it a glorious comedy performance, where Keaton kept the audience alert to every shade of pride and panic. It was like a magnificent, updated version of her nervous comedic self, now grappling with modern corporate womanhood and maternity.
Then the 1990s brought the family comedy era. Although she started the decade with a commercial disappointment, The Lemon Sisters, she hit major commercial gold opposite Steve Martin in Father of the Bride in 1991.
Huge box office success, though the sources note her casting wasn't automatic. Apparently, studios were nervous following the commercial failure of her 1988 film, The Good Mother.
Ah, right.
But the role of Nina Banks, the calm, grounding maternal presence, it just fit her perfectly.
And she reprised that role in the 1995 sequel, Father of the Bride Part 2, where Nina Banks becomes pregnant in middle age at the same time as her daughter.
Yeah, and that sequel provided a significant commentary on middle age and motherhood that really resonated with audiences. Critics started drawing that Katharine Hepburn comparison again, but this time noting her evolution.
How so?
Well, she had shifted from the stuttering uncertainty, maybe, of her early roles to presenting this fine and intelligent actress with a deeply felt maternal instinct. It was like the anti-goddess maturing into the approachable matriarch.
That makes sense. And then, the reunion everyone was waiting for. In 1993, she reunited with Woody Allen for Manhattan Murder Mystery, her first major film role with him since 1979.
Yeah, and it was a fascinating twist of fate, actually, as she stepped into a part originally intended for Mia Farrow.
Oh, right.
It was this playful, nostalgic return to their rapid-fire banter. Critics universally adored the chemistry, noting the wonderful ditzy sparks flying between them, proving their collaborative magic hadn't diminished at all. Earned her another Golden Globe nomination.
But the true cultural and commercial moment of the mid-90s, you could argue, was The First Wives Club in 1996. Keaton herself stated this film saved her life.
That statement, it just speaks volumes about the power of that particular film, doesn't it? Starring alongside Goldie Hawn and Bette Midler.
What a trio!
Right. The film focused on divorced women seeking revenge. It wasn't just a hit. It was a cultural phenomenon, especially for middle-aged women. It grossed a massive $105 million in North America and gained this enduring cult following. It really validated the commercial potential of films centered on the experiences of older actresses.
We also have to give sufficient time to her sustained directorial efforts during this period. She was actively pursuing directing while maintaining her high-profile acting career. In 1987, she directed and edited her first feature-length project, the documentary Heaven.
Yeah, exploring the highly abstract topic of the afterlife, apparently driven by her own background. She explained she was always pretty religious as a kid and wanted to explore these questions visually.
How was it received?
The critical reaction was mixed, but the subject matter links directly to her deep internal search for meaning, a theme you often see in her non-acting pursuits.
And she didn't stop there with directing. She directed music videos, including Belinda Carlisle's massive hit, Heaven is a Place on Earth.
I remember that video.
Right. 2 television films, and even an episode of David Lynch's cult series, Twin Peaks.
Wow, Twin Peaks. That's cool.
Yeah. Her first theatrically released narrative film followed in 1995, Unstrung Heroes.
Unstrung Heroes, adapted from a memoir, was generally well-received and explored family dynamics, another recurrent theme in her work. Interestingly, she shifted the setting from New York to her childhood Southern California, suggesting she was drawn to material that allowed her to explore her own history and aesthetic sensibilities.
This directing portfolio, it really shows a clear commitment to working behind the camera, not just relying on her acting fame.
Definitely. She rounded out the decade with a powerful return to serious drama in Marvin's Room, 1996, playing Bessie, a woman with leukemia, opposite Meryl Streep and Leonardo DiCaprio. This performance secured her 3rd Academy Award nomination.
The sources highlight the intense preparation she undertook for this role.
Yeah, she noted the biggest challenge was truly understanding the mentality of a person facing a terminal illness. But rather than focusing purely on the physical suffering, she achieved this depth by emphasizing the complex, decades-long estrangement and reconciliation with her sister, played by Streep. It created a performance focused on emotional realism and those complicated family ties. 2020-24.
Okay, the turn of the millennium. It was marked by some significant professional turbulence for her, wasn't it? In 2000, she directed herself in Hanging Up. How did that go?
Met with poor reviews and only modest box office returns. But the real reputational and financial hit came in 2001 with the notorious failure of Town and Country, co-starring Warren Beatty again.
Oh, I remember hearing about that one. It was a disaster.
Absolute definition of a Hollywood fiasco, plagued by production delays, reshoots, a staggering budget estimated at $90 million. It ultimately grossed only $7 million in North America. Peter Travers captured the sentiment, writing that the film was less deserving of a review than it is an obituary. Such a public failure, it severely damaged the careers and reputations of its highly visible starry cast.
Yet, consistent with her career pattern, failure never defined her for long. Her true, definitive resurgence came in 2003 with yet another Nancy Meyers collaboration, Something's Gotta Give, co-starring Jack Nicholson.
Yes.
This was more than just a box office success. It felt like a cultural correction.
It absolutely was. The film grossed $125 million, which was a remarkable success considering the internal pushback Nancy Meyers faced when pitching it. Meyers recalled that no one wanted to see people of a certain age be sexy. This film just proved the industry wrong. It validated the audience appetite for sophisticated romances centered on older characters.
And Keaton, who played a middle-aged playwright involved with Nicholson's character, she challenged the industry's ageism directly, didn't she?
She did. She stated that people their age are much deeper, much more soulful. Why shouldn't they fall in love? The film captured that messy, soulful dynamic beautifully, earning her a 4th Academy Award nomination. It really gave her the definitive role of the mature, desirable, intelligent woman.
Following that success, she continued her run of successful mature comedies, notably The Family Stone in 2005, playing a family matriarch and breast cancer survivor.
Yeah, and Peter Travers praised her ability there, calling her a sorceress at blending humor and heartbreak. She really cemented her position as the dependable, complicated heart of these family ensembles.
That being said, the late 2000s did see her star in a series of comedies that were critically, well, savaged. Because I said so, in 2007 even earned her a Golden Raspberry nomination.
Ouch, a Razzie.
Yeah, followed by Mama's Boy and Smother. It shows her willingness, maybe, to navigate the less prestigious genres, seemingly comfortable taking risks even when the material was uneven.
But her commercial relevance proved enduring. Her commercial strength returned significantly with 2018's Book Club. That was a massive, unexpected hit for a non-voice role since something's got to give.
Right.
It grossed over $100 million worldwide and led to the 2023 sequel, Book Club, The Next Chapter. These films resonated deeply by addressing the late-life sexual and emotional awakening of women, proving her continuing ability to find roles that speak to the evolving complexities of aging.
Beyond the screen, her career portfolio continued to expand wildly during this later period, showcasing those polymath interests we talked about. She acted as an executive producer on the Gus Van Sant drama Elephant in 2003 about a school shooting.
Yeah, and that production choice wasn't accidental. She stated that working on Elephant forced her to think deeply about her responsibilities as an adult, linking her creative choices to societal concerns.
Interesting.
She also utilized her recognizable voice talent, playing Dory's mother, Jenny, in Pixar's 2016 global hit Finding Dory, which grossed over $1 billion worldwide.
Wow. And she even ventured into prestige television, playing Sister Mary Ignatius, a nun, in the HBO limited series The Young Pope in 2016.
Talk about versatility. From comedy matriarch to serious cable drama nun, she just continued to choose projects that span the entire creative spectrum.
But arguably her most consistent and defining work outside of acting was in the literary and design world, an area we definitely need to explore in depth.
Absolutely. She authored multiple books, starting with the memoir, then again in 2011, which was deeply personal because it relied heavily on her late mother's private journals.
Using her mother's writings provides such a unique window into her persona, doesn't it? What did the sources reveal about that internal connection?
Well, the journals allowed Keaton to explore the complexity of her relationship with her mother and her own identity. There's one entry from her mother's journal that summed her up perfectly. Diane is a mystery. At times, she's so basic, at others so wise, it frightens me.
Wow, that's illuminating.
Isn't it? Because it reflects that paradox Keaton projected professionally. The blend of highly intellectual insight with awkward, almost childlike vulnerability. The memoir really cemented her public image as someone constantly searching for self-understanding.
She followed that with, let's just say, It Wasn't Pretty in 2014, and numerous books focused on her design interests. Photography, art collections like clown paintings, Saved, and architecture books. Which brings us to her deep passion for architecture. It transformed into a professional pursuit.
Yeah, and this wasn't just aesthetic appreciation, it was activism. She became a serious enthusiast of Spanish colonial revival architecture. She dedicated enormous energy to campaigning with the Los Angeles Conservancy to save and restore historic buildings, including the Frank Lloyd Wright-designed Ennis House. This was conservation through real commitment.
And she didn't just advocate, she turned it into a business, becoming a real estate developer focused on renovating and reselling mansions.
Right. Madonna was famously one of her clients, purchasing a $6.5 million Beverly Hills mansion from Keaton back in 2003.
No kidding.
Yeah. And she meticulously documented her findings and aesthetic interests through books like California Romantica, The House That Pinterest Built, and House. She really lived this passion.
Commercially, she maintained a high public visibility during this time, too. Serving as a contributing blogger for the Huffington Post starting in 2005, becoming the face of L'Oreal in 2006.
And importantly, she took a public and consistent stand against plastic surgery, believing her face needed to reflect her internal life. She was dedicated to authenticity, stating, "I'm stuck in this idea that I need to be authentic."
That public stance really reinforced the anti-goddess image, didn't it? Embracing natural aging in such a youth-obsessed industry.
Absolutely. Her final creative venture came very late in her career, showing that lifelong ambition to sing never died. After decades of occasional singing roles in films, she released her first ever solo single, the Christmas song, First Christmas,
Huh.
in November 2024.
Just months before her passing, truly closing the loop on a full creative life.
And her final screen appearance was in the 2024 comedy film Summer Camp, illustrating her commitment to working in the genre she helped define until the very end.
So when we look at the totality of the sources, the terms used to describe her are incredibly consistent. A treasure, a style icon, and certainly one of the great American actresses from the heyday of the 1970s. The New York Times accurately tracked her professional evolution from Alan's ditzy foil to a gifted and erotically nuanced character actress in the 80s, and finally an appealing maternal figure, a woman's woman with a sexy edge in the 2000s.
Her legacy, I think, is fundamentally defined by internal contradiction, paradox. She consistently played the complex, modern American woman, a paradox of self-doubt and assurance. Peter Rainer summarized her unique gift perfectly as her ability to be grave and goofy all at once.
Grave and goofy, I like that.
That blending of humor, intelligence, vulnerability, and insecurity became the authentic, messy trademark that audiences just connected with.
And her greatest collaborator, Woody Allen, provided the technical distinction for her comedic genius, didn't he? Calling her, with the exception of Judy Holliday, the finest screen comedian we've ever seen.
High praise. But he made an important clarification about how she achieved this humor.
Which was?
He stressed that her comedy was all character comedy, not based on one-liners or physical gags in the traditional sense. This means her humor stemmed intrinsically from the deeply flawed, neurotic persona she inhabited. It wasn't about delivering a punchline, it was about the audience understanding her specific anxiety or misplaced logic in a given situation.
That's a key distinction.
It is, because it explains why she could switch so seamlessly between high comedy and deep drama. The foundation was always character, not just technique.
That persona secured her the highest honors late in life, including the Film at Lincoln Center Gala Tribute in 2007 and the AFI Life Achievement Award in 2017, which was fittingly presented to her by Woody Allen, solidifying the importance of their lifelong professional relationship.
We should also touch on the personal connections that anchored her career, particularly her 3 high-profile romantic and professional relationships, starting with Woody Allen.
Right. Their relationship turned romantic after they met during rehearsal for Play It Again, Sam. They briefly lived together, but their romantic involvement became more informal by 1972, even while their creative partnership was reaching its absolute peak.
Their ability to pivot from romance to enduring, highly productive friendship is pretty remarkable in Hollywood, isn't it?
It really is.
They went on to work together successfully on 8 films, demonstrating this mutual respect that transcended their personal history.
She also had an intense on-again, off-again relationship with her Godfather co-star Al Pacino that lasted through the filming of The Godfather Part 3.
And she had such high praise for him, calling him simply the most entertaining man with a killer face. You can feel the connection there.
Yeah. And then there was Warren Beatty, whom she dated when they filmed the ambitious epic Reds.
The sources note that the relationship was severely tested by the immense strain of the film's chaotic production, and it ended shortly after wrapping. Yet, like Allen, they remained lifelong friends.
There's a pattern there.
There is. And the sources suggest this famous ability to remain friends with ex-partners speaks not just to personal chemistry, but perhaps a strategic maturity keeping important collaborators close, valuing professional synergy maybe above personal pain sometimes.
In her 50s, she made the highly personal decision to become a mother, adopting 2 children, a daughter in 1996 and a son in 2001.
Yeah, she described motherhood as the most completely humbling experience she ever had, a statement that really underscores how deeply she cherished her identity outside of the Hollywood structure.
In terms of her personal life and belief system.
Well, she was raised Free Methodist but became agnostic, which, as we discussed, directly motivated her documentary Heaven. She also maintained a vegetarian diet from around 1995 onward. She really pursued a full, rich life right up until the end.
Her health declined in the months before her death on October 11, 2025. At age 79 in Santa Monica, California. The cause of death was confirmed as bacterial pneumonia.
And the outpouring of tributes was immediate and widespread, reinforcing her broad impact across generations and genres. Woody Allen, Her lifelong partner in creativity wrote a powerful remembrance calling her unlike anyone the planet has experienced.
Oh.
And Nancy Myers wrote that they had lost a giant. The fact that co-stars across comedy, drama, family films, from Pacino to Hahn, Midler, Steve Martin, all paid tribute, shows how deep her connections ran across the entire industry.
So our final synthesis of her career, it really is that she carved out a totally unique space in culture. She had the intellectual capacity to play the serious hero in Reds, the comedic brilliance of Annie Hall, and the emotional warmth of the dramatic matriarch in The Family Stone.
All while breaking every traditional style rule.
Exactly. And dedicating herself intensely to creative pursuits outside of acting, whether it was direction, photography, or architectural preservation.
Her enduring image, that Keaton persona, it's defined by that powerful mix of wit, insecurity, high intelligence, and perhaps most importantly, a principled refusal to conform to the traditional ideals of a movie star. Natalie Portman captured this perfectly, reflecting that Keaton inspired her because in her roles, she let women be weird on screen.
She let women be weird on screen. I love that. And that leads us to the final connection we want to leave you, the listener, with, considering this deep dive into her architectural and photographic pursuits. We know she had this lifelong professional commitment to conservation documenting and fighting to preserve spaces and historical styles from the past, like those Spanish colonial revival buildings.
So the question is,
How did this intense interest in preserving the aesthetic structures of the past, whether it was vintage clothing or historic buildings, how did that paradoxically inform her ability to constantly reinvent herself as a fiercely modern actress?
it's the profound paradox of her appeal, isn't it? She seemed to find freedom in the structure of the past, whether it was the vintage menswear that gave her confidence or the historic architecture she fought to save that provided her with creative grounding. That commitment to recognizing and preserving authentic aesthetic history somehow enabled her to become the face of modern complex womanhood on screen.
She used the structure of the past to define the freedom of the present.
Exactly. It's a fascinating thought to explore further.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the singular career and polymath pursuits of Diane Keaton.